Hi, everybody. John Cena here, and welcome to FunkQuest Season 4, Semi-Final 2. And one of these gents is going through to the grand final of FunkQuest Season 4. You're probably thinking, hang on a minute, who's this JR geezer? I'm not been following him. Well, JR is rather funky in that he got knocked out of episode 1. And here he is, thanks to our sheriff policy, because if a Funkster cannot make it, we have the right to call back somebody else. And I mean, how cool is that? Two very funky gents. You've seen them both before. You know the rules. Let's find out who they are. Joshua, tell us where you're dialing in from.
I am coming to you from Maine in the United States. For anybody who doesn't know where that is, I don't blame you. It's about 2 hours north. I am about 2 hours north of Boston.
State the size of a postage stamp.
Well, actually, Maine is huge. If you took the rest of New England, it doesn't equal the size of Maine. We're big. It's just everybody thinks most of us is Canada, because really the top 2/3 of the state nobody ever goes to.
That's New Hampshire. That's the postage stamp.
Yeah, it's tiny. That is tiny, just like Vermont.
JR, where are you dialing in from?
I grew up most of my life in Los Angeles, but 4 years ago I moved to southwest rural Missouri in a town of 4,000 people. I am living a little too close to the Arkansas border for my liking. Joshua will understand what I mean by that.
Yeah.
And
I live too close to Arkansas for my liking.
Yeah, well, you know.
That's a long way, right? For the purposes of people that have maybe not listened to previous episodes, in previous Funk, we've found out that JR lives in a log cabin, and to the nuclear bunker he would take Snoop Dogg and a porn star. We also found that Joshua's most relaxing place that he would go is prison. JR, you had a question about our drug testing policy.
Well, I just wonder, in a game like this, if there's a doping policy. I mean, if we're, I live in a state with medical marijuana, there's oxygen that you can take. There's different, ask the Russian Olympic Committee, they're all about the doping. They know all the different ways to dope.
To answer your question, I'm not sure if we have a drug testing policy or not. If you want one, we can invent one. The only rule is no swearing, no politics, and no religion. JR, because you're sheriff, we're going to make you go first. You can pick a suitcase, a building, some binoculars, or some horses.
Horses.
What trend are you glad is no longer around?
I got a couple of things. One, I would say, is horse racing, which, yes, it's still around, but it's not around to the point that it used to be. Horses are animals that are here to help, but they don't need to be doped up. They don't need to be beat down with whips all the time. The other thing that I'm glad is no longer around is that horses are pulling the carts of Egyptian pharaohs and people from back in those days. It really wasn't their job to pull. I mean, they were horses. They were eating hay. They were taking their road apples, they were doing their thing. They don't need to be whipped and beaten and hauling around somebody who thinks that they're nothing. I mean, who is nothing but thinks they're something.
Is that a big thing in the US? I mean, we've had it over here with, horse races being mistreated. Is that a thing over there?
And I don't know, Joshua, in the part of the country you come from. I was raised in Los Angeles, and there were 5 major horse racing tracks when I was growing up until about 15 years ago, and there's one.
Because money's falling out of it, or?
It's money falling out, and people were getting hip on the way they were treating the horses and drugging the horses. And
it will be interesting how, in our culture, horse racing is given much more priority than what it possibly deserves because of gambling, because of money, right? Whereas now we've got, we can gamble on football, you can gamble on the Winter Olympics, you can gamble on whatever you want to gamble on. So, I don't know. Joshua, you can pick a suitcase, a building, or some binoculars.
Let's go for the binoculars.
Binoculars. When do you always want to beat yourself?
Geez. My waking hours?
Because
I don't know. I was an addict. I became a porn addict at 12. I became an alcoholic at 14, and with that came a lot of what is known as imposter syndrome, where I thought that I was just a giant fraud, and that most of my life was lived with a lot of anxiety because I was constantly thinking that I was going to get found out, or because I didn't deserve anything that I had. My achievements were, I somehow lucked into them. And, now that I'm in recovery, I don't want to beat myself nearly as much. But, I work with people who had the same kind of issues I did now. But it still creeps up when you spend so much of your life thinking that you are basically trying to convince everybody of one thing, yet you feel like you're a fraud. You just want to kind of beat yourself, and you do beat yourself up all the time.
I love on FunkQuest how we can be talking about horse racing 1 minute and quite deep things like imposter syndrome the next. That's
Joshua.
Completely.
Amen. Amen.
Well,
Thank you, sir.
JR, you can pick a toad, a mountaintop, some pastries, or a camper van.
Well, growing up in Los Angeles, I got to do the VW camper van.
Camper van. When was the last time you donated to charity?
A couple weeks ago, actually.
What's your favorite charity?
Since I'm an autism self-advocate, I am a member and donate to the Autism Self-Advocacy Network.
What do they do? How can they help anybody?
They work with people on projects to advocate for, and they're kind of a clearinghouse of what's going on as far as legislation in every state, and what we can do as autism advocates to help out. I gave to the American Cancer Society because my dad died 20 years ago of colon cancer. And every adult male on my side of the family has died of colon cancer. And that means me.
Well, hopefully not anytime soon, mate.
No.
Must stay. Joshua, you can pick a toad, a mountaintop, or some pastries.
Let's go for the pastries.
Pastries. What do you do differently to other people?
I, at this point in my life, do not quickly judge other people. You could be the worst criminal. You could be the most crazy person. You could be somebody who everybody points to and says, rotten person. And I've just learned over my last 7-8 years in recovery that everybody has a story. Everybody's a human being. People should not be judged on their absolute worst mistakes. People should not be judged for losing the DNA lottery. And ultimately, we need more kindness in this world. And as I am trying to, and I was not a nice person 15, 20 years ago, but as I become a more mindful, kinder, nicer person, I see the world going the other way. And that's sometimes frustrating and sometimes just really sad.
Well, my answer to that is, just that's up to them. If they want to be nasty and rude and bad-mannered, that's up to them. I can't do anything about it.
Hey, Joshua, that was a high five to you, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
High five answer, yeah.
There we go.
Question 3, JR, you can pick an old fisherman type gent, first aid box, a solar system, or a Russian hat, which is called a Ushanka.
I'll take the Russian hat.
Russian hat. Now, this probably is an open goal for you. How often do you talk to strangers?
Not as often as I should, but I will, make little comments in grocery stores or coffee shops or places, but having actual conversations is not as much as making that just kind of initial small talk. I do, because of the autism, I do tend to get a little flustered if I'm having conversations with people I don't know, but I really try to break out of my shell and get around that. So I don't talk to strangers as often as I probably should, but I do it a lot more than other people on the spectrum.
I think that if you are saying hello and how's it going to ladies in coffee shops and sandwich bars, that's probably more than most people do. Most people shout. Exactly. Most people shout and swear at people in coffee shops and restaurants and stuff like that.
Well, I was raised in Los Angeles until I was out of high school, but my parents were both from towns of 300 to 500 people in Nebraska. So I was raised with those very small town, polite, you talk to people kind of values.
Yeah, which is unfortunately old school these days.
Yeah, it's extremely old school.
Extremely. Joshua, question 3. You can pick an old fisherman, first aid box, or the solar system.
Well, that picture actually looks more like Hunter S. Thompson's briefcase of drugs. That's what that reminds me of from Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. So I'm going to pick the old fisherman.
The old gent. What teenager thing do you do?
In December, I got on TikTok.
All right.
To try to reach a younger audience for the outreach I do with pornography addiction education and presentations. And it has made me so much more in tune with pop culture. I know all these new words. I know all these new singers. I know all these new songs. I guess that my big teenager thing right now is TikTok, because that's where the teenagers are, and that's who I'm trying to reach with my message right now.
That's how they talk to each other, right? I'm going to tell somebody a TikTok joke, which I found the other day. England and Wales Cricket Board have appointed Novak Djokovic as batting coach. We appreciate he does not have a background in our sport, but it took Australia 2 weeks to get him out. So therefore,
nice.
Hey, Joshua, I also got on TikTok in December, and my one video is proof of it.
Excellent. Are we on? We're on question 4 now, I think. JR, you can pick a living space, some paint blobs, a river scene, or a radio telescope place.
I'm going with the river scene.
Where would you go in a time machine?
I would definitely not want to go back in a time where, there were outdoor toilets and, food was kept in salt to preserve itself.
Yeah.
So I think I would go more turn of the century, where as a writer, a lot of the writers that I really respect, Hemingway, Twain, people like that, I think I would go back to when they were alive and when I would have a chance to sit down and maybe speak with them.
Writers at the turn of the century. No, but this question's come up a lot. It's a favorite question. Nobody's ever said. Everybody says,
I'd stay away from Poe, though. I'd stay away from Poe because that guy's a little freaky.
Everybody always says Rome or Greece or somewhere like that. Nobody's ever said that. So that's a high five from me. That good answer.
Does anybody ever go to the future?
No, but you can. That's a good question, actually. No, you can. I was going to point out, you don't have to go to the past, you can go to the future. Yeah,
I would think that would be the only way I would not be afraid of screwing my own timeline up.
Yeah, and the more that I think about it now, I think I would probably go to the future just to see how my daughter turns out.
Oh, that's nice.
Oh, nice, yeah.
24 now, she's married, but I'd like to see what she's like in 20 years.
I'm sure she'll be everything that you expected and more. Joshua,
no, I have to go.
You have question 4, yeah. So you can pick living space, paint blobs, or a radio telescope.
I'll go with the blobs.
Blobs. Now, this is something along the similar lines. You do have to go back, because which historical figure would you most like to meet? So you do have to, by definition of the question, go back.
I am not a deeply religious person, but I would love to hang out with Jesus the last week of his life. So much of religion, so much of the world, so much of where we are today and where we've been the last 2,000 years has been about the last week of Jesus's life. I think I'd like to see what happened, what really happened, and get his take on it.
That's a good answer. That is a good answer. And nobody's ever said that. We don't allow talking of religion because it just people to recount what they've seen on TV.
Well, just from a historical point of view,
that is a good answer that skirts around the rules, and I like that.
After I talked to him about the events of his death, we'd go get a hamburger. Now time is up.
JR, question 5. You can pick some red and green peppers. Green peppers. No messing, straight in. What talent do you wish you had?
I wish I had the talent to run as far as I'd like to get back into better shape. But I also wish I had the talent to cook some of the foods that I really would like to cook, but that are just, a little difficult and I don't have the confidence to fix.
What would you like to cook? What
things like chicken tiki marsala that are, a little,
nice. Yeah.
Something other than pizza and ribs and chicken and hamburgers.
So next time you're on the show, right, you've got your ticket to get on the show, and you ain't coming on again until we've seen a photograph of chicken tikka masala.
Okay.
Right?
I can do that.
That's your ticket, right? No
I actually have all the ingredients at home to fix it, so I will send you a picture soon.
Get to it. Joshua, you can't pick the peppers. You can pick some Easter egg basket type things, a wolf or the London Underground sign.
Let's go for the Underground.
Underground sign. What store would you shop at if it was the only one you could use?
Oh, well, I guess it would have to be a multifaceted store.
Yeah.
So probably, and I don't think you have them over here, but we have them here. I would go to Costco because there are so few stores in this world where you can buy crackers, motor oil, and a casket. And really, if you need anything between crackers, motor oil, and a casket, you're going to find it at Costco. I don't love the store. I hate the lines. I hate the parking lot. But if I can only use one store, it's going to be the store that has everything, so I don't have to go without.
We do have Costco, but it is more, you can buy, 10,000 jars of oil or something.
Well, that's the same thing here. Thing here. So really, if you're planning well and you're young enough and you have enough money, you really only need one trip to Costco in your life. You just have to back a tractor trailer up and fill it up, put all the medicine and the ointments you're going to need when you're 70 and 80 years old. You can buy them when you're 20. Just, they got them at Costco.
Yeah. They're really missing the trick.
As I understand this, your Costco has caskets.
Costco around here has caskets. There's like 5 or 6 different ones you can pick from.
Yeah, I don't have coffins at my Sam's Costco.
Would you buy that when you're 20? Your coffin and just like keep it in your garage or something?
You just have to make sure you don't gain any weight.
And do you need to bring a tape measure with you so you can measure the person before you measure the casket?
Well, our Costco has an eye doctor at the front of it.
Yeah, opticians. Yeah. Opticians. Yeah.
I think almost everyone does.
And the only actual video game arcade I can still find within 50 miles of my house
is in Costco. Really?
Yeah. If I want to play any real official old school pinball, I have to go to Costco.
That's astonishing.
And I can get motor oil and a coffin. So it's a great trip.
Anyway, one of these gents is going through to the final of FunkQuest Season 4. You can decide who. Leave a comment. Leave a vote on FunkyThinkers.com. Do not leave a comment on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Listen Notes, YouTube, any of those other things you might be listening to us on. Must be on this episode page. Leave a comment with who. Joshua, how can we contact you and find out more about you, buy your books, listen to your podcast, send you money? How can we do all that?
Well, if you're going to send me money, make sure you spell my name correctly. But you can go to paddictrecovery.com. That's the letter P, and then the words addictrecovery.com. That's my website, which will link you up with everything that I've done. And if you're looking for me on any of the socials, I'm on pretty much all of them. P Addict Recovery as well. Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, all those ones. And I'm not on Facebook because I don't care how you voted.
Good answer. JR, how can we find out more about you, listen to your podcast, etc.?
Well, everything is located at notweirdjustautistic.com. Blog post, stories about what I got going on, podcast, upcoming speaking engagements, all kinds of good stuff. And I think it's stuff that's both informative for people that don't know a whole lot about autism, but it's also tips and advice to help people that are on the spectrum. So I just look forward to that. That's kind of my passion, but I still love this, getting out and getting funky and getting cool and having fun. So Jonathan, I am yours.
Oh, that's very kind of you to say. Very kind. Unfortunately, only one of you two gents is going through to the final. Stay tuned and we'll let you know who. Thanks so much and keep safe. Take care.